Hey everyone, welcome to Rutgers at the Voice of College Football. I'm here with my fantastic co-host Gabriel Pickup, and we're gonna have a great show in store for you. So if you like the show, hit that like and subscribe button. Let's get straight to it. We're going to talk about three things today. First, we've got some updates for you on Rutgers football. Second, we're going to talk about the best wins all time for Rutgers football. And third, we're going to talk about the press conference last week with Coach Greg Schiano and the outlook for the 2025 season. So let's start out with these updates. Gabe, what do you got for us?
Yeah, so, not quite breaking news, but 2 days ago, we got some really good news out of Fleming Island, Florida. And that is that Sebastian Cruz, class of 2026 safety, is committing to the Rutgers University Scarlet Knights football program. Per his ex social media, he received an offer from Rutgers on February 27th, visited the school on March 28th, and committed the next day. So he must have really been sold on Greg Schiano's vision. That's what DT Sheffield kept on saying during our interview a few weeks ago, was that Greg Schiano has a vision and players are buying into it. And per the Knight report, he recorded 75 tackles in 12 games, which for his safety is killer. He also had 15 carries for 52 yards, and he had 3 touchdowns. So maybe a little bit of if J.J. Watt was thinner, a little bit of a wildcat formation here and then, give the running backs a break. He also had experience on special teams. So going from DT Sheffield, funny enough, because I just mentioned him, on special teams, to Sebastian Cruz when DT commits to the NFL draft. He had 18 kickoff returns for 446 yards, and he also had 10 punt returns for 145 yards. So in conclusion, these numbers are impressive. The dude is light years ahead of his competition down in Florida. So we look forward to seeing how he performs with the guys up to his level of play in Adam's big 2026 year.
Absolutely. Well, that's great news. And I'll tell you, it continues a trend of great news. The transfers that Rutgers has gotten on the defensive line in the secondary, the recruits that they're getting really are filling gaps left by the departing seniors. And it looks like Rutgers this year is going to be bigger, faster, and stronger. And that bodes well for them in 2025 and in that magical year of 2026. And you mentioned DT Sheffield. I'll tell you, TD Sheffield, I call him. Watch out. He's someone to watch. Impact player for Rutgers, someone you might see playing on Sundays in a few years.
And you're never going to let that nickname go.
I love that nickname. And DT, if you're watching, listen. I know you probably want to be called by your real name, but the bottom line is this, man. You're one of the best, and you are going to be scoring touchdowns in Piscataway all year, and we're going to be there to see him. We're rooting for you. And for those of you who are watching, I want to hear your comments. Call into the show. We always like to hear different perspectives at Rutgers, at the Voice of College Football.
Absolutely.
Now, before we talk about the press conference, I was thinking today, I was getting a little bit nostalgic, Gabe, because I was thinking Rutgers hasn't had the best history throughout, its existence, but there were years, even decades, where Rutgers football proved it could compete with anyone in the country. So I started thinking back, to my time in New Jersey where I grew up, Seaside Heights, Point Pleasant, Bon Jovi, and the best wins that Rutgers ever had. So, we put together some games that we think really were signature wins for Rutgers that put them on the map nationally. We're going to discuss those before we get to the press conference. So, Gabe, we didn't collaborate on this, so we may have some different opinions, but give me a game that you think is one of the best in the history of Rutgers football.
Well, they certainly didn't give Love a bad name in this game, and it is one that I was alive for, and someone in the comments right now might not want to hear a result or even the game be mentioned. But unfortunately, Austin, we're going to have to do it to you. One game, the game I actually consider the best win in Rutgers history. November 9th, 2006, Rutgers 28, Louisville 25. Came back from 25-7 in the second quarter, and we were living on a prayer once we started coming back. Ray Rice rushed for 131 yards. What a game. And crazy enough, just another game for him, maybe even pedestrian, you could say. Kenny Britt, 67-yard catch, one of the signature plays in Rutgers history, and a game-winning field goal with under a minute left to seal the deal, and the defense stayed composed and made sure that Louisville didn't come right back at us. So that's my my favorite game of all time, and in my opinion, the best game of all time in Scarlet Knights history.
Well, let me ask you a question. Was that in Piscataway or was that in Louisville?
I believe that was in Piscataway.
Yeah, and I'll say for those of you out there who don't know how to pronounce Louisville, it's not Louisville. Stop it. It's Louisville. Yeah, I can't disagree with you on that one. That was an incredible win. Coming down from 25-7, Ray Rice with 131 yards and 2 touchdowns, and that 28-yard game-winning field goal. I wish I could go back to 2006. It was such a great year. But there are better years ahead. So, Gabe, I'm going to give you a game, from 2007. 2007 was a great year. That was the year I moved from New Jersey down to New Orleans, Louisiana. What a wonderful
New Orleans.
It's not New Orleans, and it's not the trolley when you go down to New Orleans. It's New Orleans, and it's the streetcar. What a great 4 years I spent there. But that first year was notable for a few reasons. My first Mardi Gras and Rutgers, a stunning 30-27 victory over the second-ranked University of South Florida. South Florida comes in 6-0, number 2 of the country. Rutgers knocks them off by 3, and it was the highest-ranked team Rutgers has ever beaten. Doesn't get much better than that.
No, it does not. And that was definitely back in USF's heydays when it comes to football. They're still a formidable team, but that was back when they were almost a chalk team. So going on here, this is sort of, I guess you could call it my number 2 win. Same year. And by the way, I'm sorry, Austin, but Louisville appears on this list again later on. But for now, I'm just going to talk about the Texas Bowl and the demolishment that we put on versus Kansas State in 2006, winning 38-10. It was a great way to end the season, coming back from a 3-week hiatus to kick some ass and then attend class for the rest of the year. And it was nothing. There was nothing free about the play of Josh Freeman. He had 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and we had 479 total yards of offense and held Kansas State to under 200. So pure dominance, great way to end, in my opinion, is the most impressive year in Rutgers history. There's been better records, but that year to me is the most impressive.
Yeah, that was very impressive. But I got to tell you, Kansas State, I don't know, Kansas State bothers me for a reason. Why would you go to Kansas State? It's in the middle of Kansas. It's very weird in Kansas. I've been to Kansas. You got to beat a team like Kansas State.
Sure.
They're always going to be good, but they're not going to be great.
But the dominance is why I have it so high up in my rankings. Granted, there's a little bit of fluidity to these rankings, given that it's all subjective. But to me, it's ending a tremendous year, and so it's the significance of the symbolism that has it that high up.
Yes, absolutely. And just Kansas State bothers me. I'll tell you the real reason. About 20 years ago, when I met a girl who said she went to Kansas State, and I told her I don't believe you, and then she yelled at me and walked away. But anyway, that's what my memories of Kansas State. All right, I've got a game for you.
Yeah, let's hear it.
A lot of people probably wouldn't put this on their radar, but the fact of the matter is, and Austin, my number 1 fan, would probably agree, 2014, a very interesting year.
Yeah.
Rutgers wasn't having the best year, but I'll tell you something. How many times does a team come back from a 35-10 deficit? It reminds me of when I believe it was the Houston Oilers had a 35-0 lead over,
And then talk about the New York Jets, man. They came back on the Dolphins. I think it was 38-3 in the playoffs.
Yes, the Jets came back on the Dolphins.
Anytime the Jets have something to pride themselves on, I'm going to bring it up.
And my Giants are favored to win the Super Bowl this year. I don't think so. So Rutgers down 35-10. Oh my gosh, they come back with a 41-38 victory over those Terrapins at Maryland.
Oh man, I had Maryland in my Final Four in March Madness, so I was a little disappointed with them. But that's a great win, great story. I actually just made a post on our X account, the VOCFB. Give it a follow if you will. About a week ago, talking about the origins of a terrapin, and I had no idea what a terrapin was. It turns out it's just a really cool shell of a turtle, a specific turtle, found along the DMV coast, specifically by Chesapeake Bay in Virginia, and they get washed up in Maryland. So the more you know, that's a very cool thing to know. Give us a follow on X if you will.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely a great win. The comeback is insane. You only see one of those per each team, maybe once or twice in your whole life.
Yeah, and you know what? Maryland, what is your problem? For as long as I can remember Maryland, some weeks you're competing with the best
Yeah.
teams in the country, and other weeks you're losing to a high school football team. What is with this inconsistency? What is with this nonsense? It
They
must
almost
be
broke my
it's
heart.
their proximity to Baltimore. That's the problem, and those Orioles.
They
Forget about it.
almost broke my heart by losing to Colorado State, but they ended up losing anyway. But you know what? If Auburn wins, I still win it all. So there's hope.
Look, if you lose to Colorado State, then you need to be in therapy.
That's
all I'm saying. I tell it like it is. I mean, all right. I got a game for you.
Okay. All right.
I got a game here. I like this game a lot. I'll just tell you why. Because you know what? I was never a fan of Don Bosco High School because I went to Bergen Catholic. But Mike Teal gets credit where credit is due. Yeah. 2008, Rutgers is 2-5. Seasons lost. We're not expecting much.
Might have taken my game here. I have a sneaky feeling of which game it is.
Well, you live in the great state of Pennsylvania, and I'm going to go to the state of Pennsylvania right now. Oh. Going into the University of Pittsburgh, ranked 17th in the country, 2-5 against a good Pitt team. Rutgers explodes with the victory, 54-34. Mike Teal's 6 TD passes, including a 79-yarder to Kenny Britt, showing you how good Rutgers could be and why that 2-5 record really, really reflected a lack of discipline, not a lack of talent.
And it's funny that you bring that game up and that year, because the next game I want to talk about is also from that year. But what's interesting about this, and I guess this could be its own conversation, is Mike Teal, did he not have his best year statistically in 08?
Yes.
Which is strange, right? Because 06 was clearly the better team. I mean, on paper and execution-wise and coaching even. But 08 is really when he solidified himself as an NFL draft pick.
You're absolutely right. And you know what, Mike, we're going to need you to come on the show because as we're in this nostalgia right here, it's always good to look back at some of Rutgers' greatest players ever. You're one of them. Please come on the show. I want to talk to you about that game.
Absolutely. And
yeah.
Yes. So, I'm sorry, Austin, but sticking around in 2008, a little later on that year, not too later, but a little later, I got to bring up this 63-14 domination over the Cardinals down in Louisville, Kentucky. Now, 35 points in the second quarter, 49 by half. A lot of number one programs don't even get that in a game for a whole season, and we had it at halftime. Now, it was a pedestrian second half, mostly because the score was too far gone and we didn't care as much. But Mike Teal, nonetheless, another stellar performance for him that year. 449 yards, 7 touchdowns, no interceptions, and we also had 224 total yards of rushing. The 06 win was so nice that when we faced them again, we had to beat them twice.
I'll tell you what the problem with Louisville is. I have figured it out, and it was right in front of my nose.
You're going to get yelled at in a few minutes, but go ahead.
No, Austin has to agree with this. The problem with Louisville is all they're worried about is the Kentucky Derby. You know, those horses that run around, I think it's in June, they run around some track. You know, that's what Kentucky is all about. Beautiful, beautiful state. You know, the Kentucky Derby, I mean, the center of the universe for about 3 minutes. I mean, that is something. Yeah, Louisville football always has potential. Falls a bit short. Rutgers falls a bit short, but that was a great victory.
They're good in basketball, though. Louisville and Kentucky combined, 2 of the best basketball programs.
I say that's so 10 years ago.
Yeah.
That's just me, but Kentucky is a beautiful state. I will say that. Now, listen. You know, people never really talk about this game too much, but I think it's one of their best victories ever. It comes from the year 2014. I lived in Indiana for 4 years in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and it was in the northeast part of Indiana, really, really close to Michigan, only about an hour and 45 minutes away from Ann Arbor, where they have the big house, which I call the big library, because it has 108,000 people, but it's very silent, very quiet. 2014, Rutgers not having a great year, but boy, they showed they can beat those Michigan Wolverines, and they beat Michigan 26-24. Gary Nova, 404 yards, 3 touchdowns. Gary, come on the show. Let's talk about that game. What do you think?
It's funny. You have, 2 games now from 2014?
Yes.
And then we had 2 games from 2008. Both of those years, not impressive in the grand scheme of things, but individually speaking, each week you could have a game like the one against Michigan or like the one against Louisville, where you just see flashes of greatness and you think, what could have been? What were the missing pieces? Why couldn't we do this earlier? Why can't we continue to execute this way later on in the season? So I think it's a great mention.
Yeah, and Paul Robeson was in heaven looking down.
Yes.
And giving Rutgers his blessing.
Absolutely. I got 2, this afternoon, I should say, I had 2 more come to mind, one from before your time and one from some guys were on that team and are still on the team. Which one do you want to hear first?
I want to hear the one from before my time, because that's a long time ago.
Okay. Well, it's sort of a brief synopsis here, but November 26th, 1961. No man had stepped on the moon yet. My mother was not born. My father was not born. A lot of people's grandparents were not born yet. But with that being said, we still had greatness in 1961 from the Scarlet Knights. 32-19 win over Columbia. You might think, that's not that crazy of a win. Columbia is a great educational school. If you want to be a doctor, you want to be a lawyer, you want to be a great businessman, businesswoman, you go to that school. But athletically, come on, there's definitely more impressive wins. But the significance of this was it capped off a 9-0 season, and it was the second season, bless you, under John Bateman to start his Scarlet Knights career as a coach, 17-1. It was the Pax Romana, if you will, of Rutgers Scarlet Knights football. And sure, we had some weaker competition then. We played a lot of Ivy League and non-major conference schools. But you don't control your schedule, you control your results. And we executed perfectly all year long, 9-0. So that's what I got. That's my old school win.
I got to tell you, I didn't think about that, but that is a great, great pick. Now, as far as you go, Columbia, let me tell you something. You used to be a good academic institution. But now, great pick. No disagreement with you there. What's your next one?
My next one, before we get a little political here.
I'm not getting political. I just tell it like it is, All I want to do is make America gorgeous again.
Okay, I got you. Now, this one, both of us remember. Both of us probably lived in the same place we live now. But I'll take you back to a little after the season of giving. December 28th, 2023. Do you remember the game that was?
I think I know exactly where you're going. Does it start with an M?
The team or the name of the game?
The team that they beat.
Yes. It does start with an M, and a team in baseball that their nickname is named somewhat similarly to the name of this bowl. They just invented a new freaking Batman, and as a Mets fan, I'm very frustrated with that. But if it's legal, it's legal. We'll see. But I'm taking you to the Pinstripe Bowl game, the win over Miami, 31-24. Now listen, 7-6, big whoop, right? But if you look at seasons prior, we were terrible. And this win, to me, I use the word symbolism a lot. This win, to me, is symbolic of a great turnaround in the culture of the Scarlet Knights. And Mr. NFL ready, Kyle Monangai, rushed for 163 yards, carried us to a bowl win. And we went from a bottom-tier Big Ten team to middle of the pack. It's an essential switch. I'm sure we stayed middle of the pack last year, but if you carry that success from the end of 2023 on forwards, we're in for some great things. So potentially, if we have a great year this year and the magical 2026 year that you are wishing, maybe this win can move up in a lot of people's rankings as sort of the switch needed.
I'm going to have to agree 100% with you. That game, shows, as many others did, that Rutgers can compete with elite level talent. As far as you go, Miami, you could take that turnover chain and you can shove it. Well, you can you can do with that turnover chain. Forget it.
You can go to Mardi Gras and
a
have
bunch of bums. And let me tell you something. All right, when Carson Beck goes to Miami, don't think it's going to be a walk in the park. Carson, get your head on right, smarten up. All right, focus on football. That was a great victory, no doubt about that.
And it's strange.
Gabe, I gotta ask you though.
Sure.
Who are the people responsible for naming these bowls, like the Rake Bowl, the Pinstripe Bowl? What are they, a bunch of bums?
It's got to be sponsorships, right? I mean, some of the bowl names are ridiculous. I remember when it was just Sugar Bowl, Orange Bowl, Rose Bowl, the iconic names. But with all these bowls now, it seems like it's sort of lost meaning, those iconic bowl names.
Well, you would think that somebody in charge of something would say, I don't care about the sponsorship. We're not calling it the Rake Bowl or the Pretzel Bowl or whatever, the Tostitos Bowl. Unbelievable. Nobody has common sense.
Yeah,
I got a few games before we turn to that press conference. I don't know. Should I talk about them or should I just,
No, hey, give me one or two. You know what? I gave you two. Give me two.
I mean, my friends say I'm good in small doses. That's why I'm asking. The Snoop Dogg Bowl Classic. I love it, Austin. Austin from the great state of Kentucky. Like I said,
dog.
Louisville, your problem is not with the players. The problem is everyone's obsessed with the Kentucky Derby. That's why, it is what it is. So,
wow, yippee, yo, yippee, yay.
Okay, and I think you would get disqualified from American Idol in the first round.
Oh, come on, man. I didn't give him my all.
Well, here at Rutgers, as the voice of college football, we welcome a diverse array of talent. So if you want to belt out a solo, you go right ahead.
Appreciate the support.
Of course. I'll tell you something. I don't know. Something about 2024. There were some great moments. There were some moments we wish we had back, and a season that could have gone better but for those injuries. But I'll tell you, there was one special moment in Piscataway in 2024, and that's when our good friends from Seattle came to New Jersey to Piscataway, the Washington Huskies.
I knew it.
Yeah, that's right. In the national championship game the year before, where they were squashed like a pancake by the Michigan Wolverines, but nonetheless, in the national title game, Rutgers takes out Washington in a thrilling night game, 21-18, with Washington's kicker missing a last-second field goal to tie it. Defense dominant. It was just a display of great disciplined defense. If that defense hadn't had so many injuries, you may have seen that 14-7 loss to Nebraska be a 14-7 win. You may have seen us beat Wisconsin, and certainly I think Illinois would have been in the win column for us.
Remember that? What? As much as Illinois hurts me, Wisconsin hurts me more because that was just the utmost embarrassment. Okay, that wasn't like
it showed a lack of maturity on their part.
Lack of maturity, lack of consistency, almost a lack of focus, I would say. And Illinois, we were focused until the end, man. But Wisconsin, what the hell was that performance?
The sad thing is, the Wisconsin game came off of a loss to Nebraska in Lincoln, 14-7. I guarantee you that whole week during practice, Shiano was pumping up his players, challenging his players, and then they go out and flop like that. It makes a coach think, oh, my God, how is it that they do exactly the opposite of what I'm preaching to them? That's why coaching is so difficult. Teaching is difficult.
Yeah, there's only so much you can do when you can't hop on the field. I mean, look at the 76ers right now with Nick Nurse. I mean, like I was watching the game yesterday, and I think that man, like, screw gray hairs. I think he lost a few hairs watching his team out there. So, I mean, I just hope that Shiano has all his hairs intact by the end of the season.
I'll tell you, that's a really great point because, they say the presidents age in 4 years, which they certainly do. But if you look at coaches, I mean, the stress is unimaginable. All right, so I just got one more game that I think is important. And, this was 2020 when Rutgers had an exhibition game against the defending Super Bowl champions and won 40-39. No, I'm just kidding.
I was
This
gonna
game,
say,
this
where was
game
I
is
for that?
uh, I don't know why, but Adam reminds me of Kiss with his hairstyle. Let me tell you something, Austin. I'm a huge fan of Kiss, and I consider that a compliment. I would prefer that you were thinking I was like Paul Stanley,
Well,
the front man for Kiss.
he's not partying every day. He's working in a law school every day.
Yeah, you know what? But hey, I consider them one and the same. So let's go to 2004.
Okay.
Now, Rutgers, a string of bad years. Of course, this was before the terrible Chris Ash era. But 2004 was the start of Rutgers' turnaround under Coach Schiano's first stint. Brian Leonard, 190 total yards, 6 yards per carry in a upset.
Yeah.
Michigan State, Rutgers 19, Michigan State 14. That defense played well. That was the beginning of what would become a really special run for Rutgers.
And shout out to Brian Leonard, too. Going from clear running back one, setting a lot of records for the Scarlet Knights. Then Ray Rice comes in, and he is the biggest prospect at running back that we've ever had. And Brian understands that it's going to be a two-headed monster. And then, all of a sudden, he's not even a part of the two-headed monster. Now it's just Ray Rice's team, and he's a part of it. As a senior, by the way. So, shout out Brian Leonard, because that shows real maturity. And his draft stock did not even plummet because he showed that he can be a captain of the team on the sidelines or on the field. So, we need some more of that nowadays. And specifically from the wide receiver cores. I see it from this wide receiver core. So, I'm just hoping that more people can be like Brian Leonard.
I agree with you. And I'm going to repeat what I've said and stand by it. 2026 is the magical year. A magical year in New Jersey. A lot of things are going to happen in New Jersey that year. I'm going to be spending a lot more time there, which is always a good thing for me and New Jersey. And Rutgers is going to have a magical year. But, I'll tell you, Gabe, with the players coming in, 2025, that could be one too. So, Rutgers, when people think about Rutgers, they often think, Rutgers has sucked for most of its history. But I hope you realize from this analysis that there have been bright spots in the past and there will be in the future. Speaking of the future, we had our first press conference with Coach Schiano this week talking about the upcoming season. You have any thoughts about that?
Well, when it comes to the, because spring practice is here, and boy, could it not come quick enough. I'm liking what I'm seeing from the guys out there, the players. Everyone seems to have some real chemistry. Ethan's utilizing his weapons. Granted, we don't have much of a sample size. It's been less than a week. But I'm liking what I'm seeing out of the players. It's just the pressers, the media. Some of the guys, especially like Schiano's a veteran coach. Like he's been an NFL coach. He's been a coach for this program several times, and he's been an assistant elsewhere. I mean, it just didn't seem like he had that much optimism when I was hearing him speak. What do you think?
Yeah. Before I get to that, you mentioned Ethan Kaliakmanis. Ethan, this is the last time. This is the last time I'm going to tell you. You got to come on the show. We love you, buddy. But we need you to come on here, all right? Because we want to talk to you about your development in the upcoming season. And the same goes to you, Coach Schiano. Come on, Coach. We're your biggest fans. We're promoting Rutgers football here, but we don't see you. Come on the show. Give us 15 minutes. We got a few questions for you. We'd love to discuss.
If he comes on the show, I'll talk to him as long as he's around.
Yeah, I will too. And you know what? I mean, he's a Jersey guy. He's a straight shooter, and so are we. And we want to talk to Coach Schiano, and get some real insight on what he really thinks about the upcoming season and the potential of Rutgers football. But I got to tell you something, Gabe. When I was listening to that press conference, you listen to a press conference, coaches, they do what they always do. Coach speak, which is totally understandable. But one sentence from that press conference really stuck out to me. And it was when he was talking about their practice and how they were doing good things. And he paused for a second and he said, but we've got a long ways to go. And he said it in a very somber way. And I just sat there and said, I don't think he realized what he just said in terms of basically what he's saying is we're not very good right now. What were your thoughts when you heard him say that?
I couldn't agree more, because you hear coaches say this, we've got a long way to go. We're not there yet. We can execute better, etc. And you think no big deal, because a coach is supposed to critique. He's supposed to nitpick, but it's the tone in which he said it. The ominous tone, the sort of reverting back to 2022 tone. And I'm telling you, if we have a long ways to go come September, that man's going to be on the hot seat. As much as I love him and I'll always appreciate the greatness that he brought to this program, that man, if we still have a long ways to go, if there's no real progress made, then he might have to go a long way. So
yeah, and it's really for Coach Schiano, who's a fantastic coach and a great man. It's really he's in such a difficult position. He's in the Big Ten.
Yes,
you got Michigan, Oregon, Ohio State, USC. All right, and he's at Rutgers, where they don't get the 5-star recruits. They don't get a majority, more than maybe a handful at most of 4-star recruits. So he's got to bank on his coaching, his staff, and development to compete with these, elite schools. It is almost an impossible thing to ask, yet he did it in 2006.
Yes.
He's had some amazing wins in 2014 and the other years that we discussed. That's a real testament to how amazing he is as a coach. Now, I think Rutgers is starting to get some serious talent. That could change. But to know what he's been able to do with the cards that he's been dealt is something special.
I mean, here's my thing with Schiano, right? I mean, we have a solid roster. We have some guys that, can become NFL players in a year, 2 years, 3 years. But the thing is, our draw to this university right now, and this is a compliment too, but it also adds a lot of pressure. It's not Cam Miller, it's not Ethan, it's not DT, although all those guys will add a lot. Colin Weaver, number 9 ranked tight end transfer, he'll add a lot. CJ Campbell, I'm looking for a breakout year from him, from Raymond, as sort of a two-headed monster. But these guys are not the draws to the program when you're an outsider looking in high school, when you're in a transfer portal. The draw to the program is Coach Greg Schiano, because of his no-nonsense mentality, his NFL experience, his experience in this program, the fact that we've had 2 solid years now, and the fact that, a lot of these guys have this mindset. That's all credit to him. So what he says what he's saying on the microphone, that goes a long way, not just with us, but with the players too, because a lot of them look up to him and are there because of him and his pitch.
I agree with you. And his pitch is one that not only is going to help his players become great football players, but serve them well in life. And at a school like Rutgers, where the academics are top notch, it really does present a great package for players, because most players don't make the NFL. And if they do, the average is about 3 to 4 years in the NFL. But a Rutgers degree helps you beyond that. And I think what Schiano does is train these players to be solid men, and solid citizens. And that's something that you deserve credit for, Coach. And we hope you come on and answer a few questions and have a good discussion with us. So ultimately on this Monday evening, we are crawling towards the season. The off season is a very long one, but we're getting closer and closer. So any final thoughts about where Rutgers is now and what you hope to see going forward?
Now, listen, it's not a promising update from Coach Schiano, but I'm still optimistic about this season because the guys are bought in. The system seems to be improving. This is going to be Ethan's best year. He's going to have more talent than he's ever had. His drive, his workload, you can tell that he wants to be better, because you can tell that he wants to be in the NFL, and I believe he can. We got some good transfers, especially on that D-line, the tight end Weaver. I think our special teams is great this year. That's not to be overlooked, is our special teams is great. So I'm optimistic still. We'll see as we get closer. there's certainly a time and a place for changing my mind if I'm not liking what I'm seeing.
Yeah, and Gabe, I think, one of the things about this year with Ethan, like you said, he has the potential to be great this year, and he's going to have a great, great receiving core. And I think that Rutgers is going to surprise a lot of people. But the last thing I'll say on this show is this. When I heard that statement, we've got a long way to go by Coach Schiano, it wasn't just that it was a somber statement saying, hey, our team isn't where it needs to be right now. He seemed tired when he said it. And it made me think he's getting tired as a coach, which is totally understandable, doing it this long and under this kind of pressure. But it raised a red flag for me that maybe Coach Schiano is starting to get a little tired. And that makes me sad because we never like to see greatness go away. But unfortunately, I think that Coach Schiano in the next 2 to 3 years might be deciding to
Hang it up.
Hang it up. And that's going to be a sad day. But, Coach, you have nothing but gratitude from us. Keep pushing, Coach. We're behind you. We're behind you, Ethan. The future for Rutgers is going to be bright, and you're going to have your best moments with Rutgers are going to be before Coach Schiano retires. And we're going to be here supporting Rutgers all the way through.
Let me just say this, too.
Yeah.
Just because something has a long way to go doesn't mean that it's impossible to get there. I mean, you look in the NFL this past year, A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts, I think it was week 9. I mean, that's halfway through the year. They're talking about we're not connecting right. I'm not happy with where this team is. And they were on a win streak too. And look what happened with that team. Now, I'm not saying we're going to win the national championship or make the playoffs. Who knows? Maybe we could make the playoffs. Fingers crossed. Never know. But I'm not saying either of those things will happen. But what I am saying is that Schiano saying that is not the be-all, end-all.
No, it's not. And I think we're on the cusp of something great, and I think it's going to shock a lot of people. And this show is on the cusp of something great because we're going to be here every Monday at 7 p.m. and just wait till the season starts. The shows are going to be dynamic. We're going to have some special guests on, and looking forward to this show becoming the true voice of Rutgers at the voice of college football. So we will see you all next week, 7 p.m. If you like the show, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Thanks for being here. And until next time, go Rutgers.
Go Rutgers.